The stars were falling. Not because of beauty, not because of wonder, but because of war. Across the galaxy, the Auroch came like a dark wave, crushing everything in their path. Worlds that had stood for thousands of years were burned in a day. Fleets that had ruled the skies disappeared in moments. Cities crumbled, planets turned to dust, and people fled. The most powerful empires ran without looking back. The wise, the rich, the strong, all of them chose to escape. In the silent dark, one message moved from one corner of space to the other. It came from every defeated world, passed in fear and mourning. 3 words that meant doom. The Auroch come. No one knew where the Auroch came from. No one knew why they attacked. They did not speak. They did not ask for peace. They simply arrived, destroyed, and moved forward. Their ships were like black steel, smooth and cold, moving without sound. Their weapons could tear through shields like paper. Their soldiers did not take prisoners. The Council of Nine, the oldest and strongest alliance of alien races, broke in days. The proud Gilesh Empire, who had ruled 3,000 systems, fell in less than a week. The Krell, who had built fortresses around their stars, disappeared without a word. The Gentheri, masters of trade and knowledge, packed their ships and ran far into the edge of the void. In every place the Auroch touched, there was only death and silence. And yet, in the middle of this storm, one message stood out, strange, short, and clear. From the blue-green world called Earth, a small human transmission echoed. Human forces stand ground. No retreat. The message confused the other species. It made no sense. Earth was young in the galactic map. Humans had only spread to a few nearby stars. Their fleets were small. Their weapons were old. They did not have the armies of the Gilesh, nor the knowledge of the Gentheri. Why would they stand and fight? On the bridge of the alien ship Vestarna, the commander Tessera replayed the message again and again. Her golden eyes narrowed. Beside her, her second officer, a tall creature named Velk, shook his head. "They are fools," he said. "They will die in hours." But Tessera was not sure. There was something in the human voice. Calm, steady, almost cold. It did not sound like madness. It sounded like a choice. Far away, above Earth's orbit, the human battleship ISS Revenant prepared for war. Inside, soldiers moved quickly, but without panic. Captain Rhea Vargas stood in the center of the command deck, her face sharp and still. Her dark hair was tied back, her eyes locked on the hologram map floating before her. Red markers showed Auroch fleets moving closer. Her officers waited for orders, but she spoke quietly. "We will hold the line," she said. "No retreat." Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Mason, glanced at her. "Ma'am, reports say the Auroch fleet is 10 times our size." "I know," Vargas replied. "Other colonies have fallen," he said. "Our allies have left." "I know." "Then why?" "Because if we run," Vargas said, her voice even, "there will be nothing left to return to." Outside the wide windows of the ship, hundreds of human vessels moved into formation. They were not large ships. Many were old cargo carriers, turned into makeshift warships. Some were mining rigs with cannons welded onto their frames. There were no shining armadas here, just rough, ready machines, full of people who had no intention of giving up. Across human colonies, factories roared day and night. Civilians packed ammo crates. Farmers built barricades. Scientists rewired old satellites into weapons. Everyone, everywhere, was getting ready to fight. There was no panic on their faces, only hard eyes and steady hands. The alien races could not understand it. Sarah stood in her ship's observation deck, watching the human fleet form. She opened a communication line to the other fleeing races. Her voice was calm but heavy. "They do not run," she said. "They stay. They will die." Someone answered. "Maybe," she replied. "But they make their stand." Above Earth, the ISS Revenant locked into final position. Captain Vargas turned to her crew. She did not give a long speech. No talk of glory, No false hope. Just simple truth. The Auroch will come soon. We know what they can do. We know this fight is not fair, but we are not here for fair. We are here to hold this ground for as long as we can. You know your jobs. Do them well." Her soldiers nodded. No one left their post. In the dark space beyond, the first Auroch ships appeared like shadows on the radar. Long and sharp, black as night, they moved fast, silent, deadly. They were close now. In the quiet moment before battle, Captain Vargas gave one last command. Her voice echoed through the ship and into the hearts of her people. "Brace for contact. No retreat." As the stars above burned and the dark tide rolled in, humanity made its stand. While the rest of the galaxy ran, the humans chose war. The Auroch ships came fast. Their black hulls shimmered like glass as they cut through space. No lights blinked on their surfaces. No radio waves came from them. They moved as if they were part of the dark itself. On the screens of the ISS Revenant, hundreds of red markers filled the sky. The enemy had arrived. Captain Ria Vargas stood still on the command deck, her eyes fixed on the enemy fleet. Around her, her officers worked without fear. Their fingers tapped screens, their voices calm as they gave updates. There was no time to be scared now. They had prepared for this. "Enemy range in 60 seconds, Mason reported. "Hold position," Vargas said. "Wait for my signal." The human fleet spread out like a net. Small ships broke away from the main formation and disappeared into asteroid fields, nebula clouds, and debris rings. Many of these ships carried no heavy weapons. They carried traps. Months before the Auroch arrived, human engineers had turned old mining rigs into remote bomb carriers. They had filled cargo ships with high explosive charges, EMP mines, and gravity traps. These were not beautiful weapons. They were dirty, dangerous, and unexpected. In a small ship near the asteroid belt, Sergeant Lena Park sat in a dark control room. Her ship had no weapons. Only a single button on her console blinked with soft red light. She and her team waited quietly. They watched as Auroch fighters flew past them, unaware of the danger. In another system, on a small colony named New Madrid, the sky turned black as Auroch dropships entered the atmosphere. On the ground, civilians had built trenches and walls from steel and rubble. Farmers held old rifles. Children worked beside their parents, passing ammo and supplies. Above them, orbital defense turrets hummed, waiting to fire. The Auroch had crushed thousands of worlds before, but never like this. The first shots were fired in orbit. The Revenant's main cannons flashed blue light as beams of energy tore into the front line of Auroch ships. Some of the smaller enemy vessels cracked under the blast, but most pushed forward, shields flaring bright. "Enemy boarding craft incoming," Mason warned. "Deploy interceptor wings," Vargas ordered. Dozens of human fighters launched from the Revenant's hangars. They were fast, small, and heavily armed. Unlike alien fighter pilots, who followed clean and careful battle patterns, human pilots dove recklessly at the enemy. They spun between ships, fired at close range, and often rammed when they ran out of ammo. The aliens had called this madness. Humans called it close work. In the asteroid field, Sergeant Park's team got the signal. The Auroch fleet moved directly over the hidden mines. "Now," she said. Her hand hit the red button. Across the belt, hundreds of hidden charges exploded at once. EMP waves rippled through space, shutting down enemy engines. Gravity traps snapped open, pulling ships into deadly collisions. Metal and fire filled the void. Back on the Revenant, Vargas saw the blast on her screen. A small smile touched her lips. The plan was working. But the Auroch were not so easily broken. From their flagship, larger and darker than any other ship, new waves of fighters and bombers poured out. They did not turn back. They did not slow down. Even as their ships exploded around them, they moved like machines. The Auroch reached New Madrid's surface by noon. Their soldiers dropped from the sky. Tall, black-armored creatures with long blades and plasma rifles. Their faces were smooth metal masks, their movements sharp and fast. The farmers and civilians met them head-on. Old rifles fired into armored bodies. Homemade bombs blew apart landing crafts. Men and women with nothing but steel pipes and courage charged Auroch lines. They knew they would die, but every second they held the enemy back, gave the fleets in orbit more time. In the command center of New Madrid, a young officer named Lieutenant Sarah Chen radioed Vargas. "This is Chen. Ground forces engage. We will hold as long as we can." "You are not alone, Chen," Vargas replied. "We are bringing the fight to them. Hold strong." Above the planet, human battleships cut through Auroch formations. Cargo ships slammed into enemy cruisers, detonating their payloads. Fighter wings broke into small packs, striking weak points again and again. On Tissera's ship, watching from a safe distance, her crew stared in shock. Velk spoke slowly, as if he did not believe his own words. "They are winning, even like this." Sarah narrowed her eyes. It was not clean victory. Humans were losing ships fast. Their tactics were brutal and costly, but the Auroch were bleeding, something no other race had made them do. She opened a private channel to her council. "We should not leave," she said. "We should learn." The battle over Earth raged into the night. Fires burned across land and sky. Captain Vargas stood tall on her ship, giving calm orders as her fleet moved like wolves around a giant. Human soldiers fought in space, in air, and on the ground. They did not break. They did not run. As the first day ended, the Auroch fleet slowed. For the first time in their dark campaign, they had been pushed back from a world. Captain Vargas sat quietly in her chair, hands folded. She knew this was only the beginning. The Auroch would return. Stronger, angrier, but now they knew one thing for sure. Humans did not run. The smoke had not yet cleared from the skies of New Madrid when the news spread across the stars. The Auroch had been stopped. Not destroyed, not beaten fully, but stopped. For the first time in their endless march, they had been pushed back from a world they tried to take. Among the alien survivors hiding in distant systems, confusion grew. They had all run. They had all surrendered their planets, their fleets, their homes. They had believed the Auroch could not be fought. And now, the humans had proved them wrong. On her ship, the Vestarna, Tissera gathered her officers in the war room. A large screen showed footage of the battle. They watched as human fighters darted through space like fireflies, as ragged warships slammed into Auroch cruisers, and as ground troops charged without fear into black-armored enemies. Tissera's golden eyes stayed calm, but inside, her mind turned fast. "They are dangerous," Velk said beside her. His long claws tapped nervously on the table. "Unpredictable. Reckless." Tissera nodded. "Yes, but they win." She looked around at her officers. "We cannot hide forever. Sooner or later, the Auroch will come for us again. Running did not save us before, and it will not save us next time." Velk folded his arms. "You suggest we fight beside humans. I suggest we watch and decide." Far from Tissera's ship, on the ISS Revenant, Captain Ria Vargas stood in the ship's medbay. Rows of wounded soldiers rested in silence. Some had burns, others were missing limbs. They did not complain. Doctors worked quickly but calmly. Vargas walked among them, nodding to each in turn. She knew their names, all of them. Outside the medbay, Lieutenant Mason waited for her. "Ma'am, long-range scans show the Auroch have pulled back to regroup," he said. "They'll return," Vargas replied. "Yes, ma'am. Also, we've received communications from alien fleets." Vargas tilted her head slightly. "Fleeing survivors. Some, yes, but not all. The Vestarna sent a message. They want to meet." Vargas' expression did not change, but a spark of thought crossed her eyes. "Interesting. Arrange it." The meeting was set on a neutral station orbiting an old dead star. The humans arrived in a single ship, small, battered, and plain. Vargas herself led the group, wearing simple combat armor. Beside her were Mason and a few other officers. No guards, no ceremony. Sarah's delegation was larger, her officers dressed in sharp robes and polished armor. When she saw Vargas step into the hall, she studied the human carefully. Vargas's face was calm, unreadable. "You stand where others fall," Tisara said as greeting. "And you watch from where others run," Vargas answered, her voice steady. There was a long pause before Tisara gave a small nod. She respected honesty. "We lost much," Tisara said, her voice softer. "My people are not cowards. We fought once, but when defeat seemed sure, we fled. We did what we thought was wise." "I understand," Vargas replied, "but running only delays defeat. It does not stop it." Sarah's eyes narrowed slightly. "You believe humans can stop the Auroch." "I believe we can make them bleed," Vargas said, "and sometimes that is enough." For hours, the two leaders talked. They shared what little they knew of the Auroch, their weapons, their movements, their strengths. Vargas did not hide her tactics. She explained the traps, the suicide runs, the ground defenses. Cesara listened carefully, her officers whispering among themselves. Finally, Tessera leaned forward. "If we stand beside you, if my people help, what do you demand in return?" "Nothing," Vargas answered. "Only one thing. You fight. You don't run." Cesara's golden eyes locked on Vargas. She studied the human's sharp, steady gaze. In her mind, she remembered her own homeworld. Burning, lost. She remembered the screams of her people as they fled. Shame weighed heavy on her shoulders. Slowly, she stood. She held out her hand, a gesture of agreement. "We will fight." Vargas shook her hand firmly. No smile. No words of thanks. Just understanding. Over the next weeks, small alien ships began to arrive near Earth and its colonies. Survivors from different races, warriors, engineers, pilots, joined the human forces. Some were cautious, unsure if humans could truly lead them. Others had nothing left to lose and were ready to try anything. In underground bunkers and orbiting shipyards, humans and aliens worked side by side. The first mixed units were formed. Human soldiers trained alien fighters how to use human weapons. Alien engineers taught humans how to strengthen their ships with advanced materials. Slowly, trust began to form. Not everyone agreed. On a distant moon, a secret message blinked in the dark. A tall figure in black armor knelt before a hologram of an Auroch commander. The alien spy lowered his head. "The humans gather allies," the spy said. "Let them," the Auroch voice answered, deep and cold. "We will crush them together." The spy nodded. His mission was clear. Back on Earth, Captain Vargas stood before her gathered forces. Humans and aliens together filled the hall. She looked at their tired, ready faces. No grand speech came from her lips. Only simple words. "The Auroch are coming again. This time, we hit them first." And as her fleet prepared to launch into enemy space, across the stars, both sides knew one truth. The next battle would decide everything. The human fleet moved out like a storm. Ships rose from Earth, from Mars, from the moons of distant gas giants. And now, not just human ships. Sleek alien cruisers flew beside them. Thin, sharp fighters of the Gilash. Heavy, armored frigates of the Krell. Even trade vessels of the Genthuri, refitted with cannons, moved in formation. On the command deck of the ISS Revenant, Captain Ria Vargas watched the fleet gather on her display. Mason stood at her side, glancing at the growing numbers. "We've never had a force this large," he said quietly. "No," Vargas agreed. "We've never needed one." Their target was simple, a forward Auroch base deep in unclaimed space. Intelligence from Tessera's spies said the Auroch were gathering fleets there. A place where enemy supply lines could be cut and where a sharp strike might slow their next attack. It was a risk. It meant leaving human space and going into dark territory, where no backup could come. But if they waited, the Auroch would come to them anyway, with even more force. Far from the fleet, deep in the black void, the Auroch prepared as well. Their ships circled a dead planet like vultures. Giant black factories floated in orbit, pumping out new weapons, new ships, new soldiers. Inside one of the massive flagships, an Auroch commander stood before his war council. Their faces were hidden behind smooth metal masks. They did not speak aloud. Their voices moved through low, vibrating sounds, like distant thunder. They knew the humans were coming. They welcomed it. On the Revenant, as the fleet entered jump space, Captain Vargas gave her orders in clear, short bursts. Her fleet would arrive in waves. First, fast scout ships to map the area. Then the heavy cruisers and battleships to strike key points. Finally, the carriers and troop transports to land forces on the ground. Sarah's forces took their positions smoothly. Her people were fast learners. They had watched the humans closely and adjusted their tactics. Velt's sharp ships flanked human cruisers, their weapons charged and ready. In the barracks, human and alien soldiers prepared side by side. Sergeant Lena Park checked her gear carefully. Beside her, a tall Krell warrior adjusted the heavy armor plates on his shoulders. His deep voice rumbled. "You humans are smaller than us," he said, "but you fight with fire in your hearts." Park smiled slightly. Fire burns bright when there's nothing left to lose. The fleet dropped out of jump space on the edge of the Auroch stronghold. Before them stretched a dark system. A dead star hung in the center, giving no light. Around it, Auroch ships filled the space like black bones. There were thousands of them. On the Revenant's bridge, the screens lit up red as sensors locked onto targets. "Enemy force confirmed," Mason reported. "They're waiting for us." "Good," Vargas said. "We won't disappoint them." The first wave of human and alien fighters launched forward. Missiles streaked across the blackness, slamming into enemy lines. The Auroch responded fast. Their ships surged forward in tight groups, firing plasma beams that cut through shields. Explosions lit up the void. Vargas' fleet pressed in hard. Smaller ships danced between Auroch lines, dropping mines and firing at weak points. Larger ships focused their cannons on enemy flagships. On the Revenant, the hull shook as enemy fire struck near. "Forward batteries, full spread," Vargas ordered. "Flank groups, circle their rear." Cicera's ships moved sharply, slipping behind Auroch formations. Alien plasma beams cut into black steel, tearing open enemy cruisers. Velk's fighters swarmed Auroch carriers, ripping through engines and reactors. The battle was fast and brutal. No time to breathe. No time to think of fear. On the ground, troop transports landed hard on the dead planet's surface. Sergeant Park's boots hit the soil first. She led her squad through broken metal ruins. Auroch ground forces emerged from hidden bunkers, tall, armored, deadly. They charged with plasma blades glowing bright. Park fired first. Her rifle spat sharp bursts, dropping the first wave. Behind her, human marines and alien soldiers fought shoulder to shoulder. Grenades exploded. Blades clashed. The air burned with smoke and fire. On the Revenant, Mason reported quickly. "Enemy reinforcements incoming. New fleet entering from system edge." Vargas's jaw tightened. "We can't pull back now." Sarah's voice came through comms, clear and strong. "My ships will intercept. Hold the line, Captain." "Understood." Sarah's fleet broke away to meet the fresh Auroch force. Her sleek cruisers and agile fighters struck fast and hard, buying time for Vargas's ships to push deeper. On the ground, Park's team reached the enemy command core, a massive black tower pulsing with power. Explosives were set quickly. The team covered each other, firing non-stop at waves of Auroch soldiers pouring out from tunnels. Park's hands were steady as she armed the detonator. "Charge set," she called out. "Fall back." As they ran from the tower, Auroch fire rained down around them. Park dove behind a crumbled wall. Her thumb hit the trigger. The explosion shook the ground like an earthquake. The black tower cracked, then crumbled in on itself, flames shooting skyward. Above, on the Revenant's bridge, Mason saw the energy signature vanish. Enemy command core destroyed. Captain Vargas gave a single nod. Signal all ships. Begin withdrawal. As the fleet pulled back, the Orok forces slowed. Without their command center, their attacks weakened. Human and alien ships regrouped and jumped away before more enemy waves could arrive. Hours later, back in safe space, Captain Vargas stood before her gathered officers. Her voice was calm as always. We struck deep. We hit them harder than they expected. We showed them we won't wait quietly to be crushed. Sarah stood beside her, arms folded. This was only the first blow, Vargas continued. The war is far from over. But today, we reminded the Orok they can bleed. Across the fleet, human and alien soldiers cheered quietly, not for victory, but for hope. Weeks passed after the strike on the Orok stronghold. The human and alien fleet returned home with heavy damage, but high spirits. Repairs started fast. New ships were built. Fresh soldiers trained day and night. Across every colony and every allied world, one thought grew stronger. Maybe, just maybe, they could win. On the ISS Revenant, Captain Vargas walked the shipyard decks in silence. Welders sparked across damaged hulls. Engineers moved quickly along scaffolding. Everywhere she looked, people worked with sharp focus. They knew there was no time to rest. Mason caught up with her, holding the small data pad. "Ma'am, we're receiving scattered reports," he said. "Orok forces are moving slower than usual. Their supply lines are thin after our strike. Some colonies they attacked have even pushed back." Vargas nodded. "They're off balance, but not broken." She knew better than to hope too soon. The Orok were wounded animals now. Wounded animals bite harder. In the outer colonies, alien and human commanders met in secret war councils. Tessera stood before a large hologram, her golden eyes watching as fleet movements were drawn in light. Velk pointed his claw at a weak spot in the Orok lines. "If we hit here, their outer fleets will lose support," he said. "We can force them to retreat even more." Sarah spoke calmly. "No, that will not break them. The humans taught us one thing. Bold strikes matter more than slow pushes. We need something sharper." A message arrived on her personal console, a coded signal from Vargas. Sarah read it quietly. When she finished, a small smile touched her lips. She turned to her council. "The humans have found where the Orok Queen is." The room went silent. For years, no one had been sure how the Orok truly worked. They had no known leaders, no kings or generals. But now, thanks to stolen data and captured Orok equipment, the truth had come out. Deep in their space, on a fortress world called Karzul, a central mind existed. Not a queen in the human sense, but something worse. A living command network that linked all Orok forces. Destroying it might break their unity forever. Captain Vargas met Tessera face to face days later. "The risk is high," Tessera said. "They will guard it with everything." "They always do," Vargas replied. "We don't get to choose easy fights." The two leaders stood in silence for a moment, then nodded together. The plan began. Across human and alien space, volunteers stepped forward. Soldiers, pilots, engineers. They all knew what the mission meant. If they won, the war could shift forever. If they failed, there might not be a second chance. Sergeant Lena Park sat with her squad in the transport bay. Her rifle rested on her knees. Beside her, the Krell warrior tightened the straps on his armor. "You humans are strange," he said. "You charge into death with smiles." Park gave a tired grin. "We smile because we know what happens if we don't fight." The fleet gathered again, larger than before, sharper. Ships shone with new armor, weapons charged hotter than before. Human and alien crews moved like one now. No more hesitation between them. On the command deck, Vargas gave simple orders. We jumped straight to Karzul. No half measures. No slow crawl. We strike fast. We strike hard. We end it. The jump was long and rough. When they arrived, the view ahead made even the bravest pause. Karzul was massive, a planet made of black metal and sharp towers, wrapped in thick clouds of red gas. Orbiting it were thousands of Auroch ships. Layers of defense platforms circled the world like chains. Mason's voice was quiet. We've never faced something this big before. We don't need to face it all, Vargas said. We just need to reach the core. The battle began instantly. Human and alien ships burst into the Auroch fleet with everything they had. Missiles, plasma beams, railguns. The sky lit up in every color of fire. Fighters swarmed enemy carriers. Bombers dove toward the planet's surface. Explosions rippled across the black void. Sarah's fleet swept to the left flank, cutting a hole through enemy lines. On the Revenant, Vargas pushed her ships through the center. Every second, more ships exploded on both sides. The fleet was bleeding fast. On the surface, troop transports crashed down hard on Karzul's jagged plains. Surgeon Park led her team out into the storm. The air was thick and dark, glowing faint red under heavy clouds. Strange machines towered around them, spires pulsing with energy, linked by long black cables. The Auroch poured from bunkers. Waves of tall armored soldiers charged the landing zones. Park and her squad fired nonstop, their boots sinking into strange soft metal ground. Alien allies flanked them, pushing forward. Targets 2 clicks north. Park called over comms. Move fast. Overhead, heavy dropships roared in low, dropping tanks and walker units. The ground battle grew louder, hotter, faster. For every meter gained, the price was high. Park's team pushed through burnt ruins and shattered towers. They finally reached a massive circular pit where the command mine pulsed deep below. Strange black tendrils rose from the pit like roots. The heart of the Auroch. As her team set explosives along the rim, her comm crackled. Park, this is Vargas. The captain's calm voice came through. Status. We're setting charges. Almost ready. Good. Make it count. Park knelt beside the detonator, her fingers steady even as plasma fire rained nearby. Around her, her squad held the line as Auroch forces closed in. We do this now, she said firmly. With a deep breath, her thumb hit the trigger. The pit exploded in blinding white light. The ground shook under their feet. From orbit, even the fleets could see the shockwave ripple across Karzul's surface. On board the Revenant, Mason gasped as red markers on their tactical screen vanished. Hundreds, then thousands of Auroch ships going dark at once. It's working, he breathed. Their network is crashing. Captain Vargas stood tall, eyes sharp. Signal the fleet, she ordered. Push them. Hard. Across the sky and ground, human and alien forces surged forward. The tide had turned. The shockwave from the destroyed command core rippled out across the planet and deep into space, on ships, on ground stations, in bunkers and factories. The Auroch forces staggered. Their movements slowed, their formations broke apart. Some ships drifted with no control. Ground soldiers froze mid-charge, confused and disconnected. On board the Revenant, Mason's screen filled with flashing blue markers. Allied ships were moving fast now, taking advantage of the chaos. They're falling apart, he said with disbelief. It's working faster than we thought. Captain Vargas kept her gaze locked ahead. Don't stop. We crush them now, before they recover. All across the battlefield, the human and alien fleet attacked with sharp precision. Velk's fighters dove into clusters of Auroch ships that no longer moved in formation. Tissera's heavy cruisers carved through enemy flagships that tried to retreat. Even damaged human ships pressed forward, guns blazing, shields crackling under the strain. On Karzul's surface, Surgeon Park led her team back through the shattered ruins. Smoke and red dust choked the air. The sky above flickered with distant flashes of orbital fire. Auroch soldiers stumbled across the broken plains, some dropping their weapons, others turning in confused circles like puppets with cut strings. Park raised her rifle and advanced carefully. Beside her, the Krell warrior breathed heavily. "They are lost," he rumbled. "Without their queen. They are shadows." "Keep moving," Park ordered. "We make sure they stay that way." Her team swept through bunkers and command nodes, planting explosives and clearing any last Auroch pockets. Behind them, more human Marines and allied soldiers landed, spreading across the planet like a rising wave. In space, Tessera's ship linked to the Revenant by direct comms. "We have control of orbit," she reported. "Their fleets are breaking in all sectors." "Good," Vargas answered. "We moved to Phase 2, cut their escape routes." For the next hours, it was a hunt. Human and alien forces swept across the system, hunting down remaining Auroch ships and disabling defense platforms. On planets and moons across Auroch space, colonies that had long been under siege found their enemy suddenly weak and broken. Messages poured into command. Reports of victories, of liberated outposts, of enemy surrenders. On one small human colony, a group of settlers watched as Krell and Chilesh ships descended from the sky to finish off the last Auroch raiders. A boy looked up at the clouds and whispered, "They came for us." They really came. Back on the Revenant, the bridge was calm but focused. No cheers yet, no smiles. Everyone knew it was not over. Not until they were sure. Mason looked up from his console. "Ma'am, long-range scans show Auroch ships are scattering in all directions. No sign of regrouping. They're running." Vargas exhaled slowly. "They never ran before." Sarah stood beside her, arms folded. "They are not like you," she said quietly. "They are not made to stand alone. You broke their center. Now they fall." Vargas turned to Mason. "Send the message to all fleets. Full pursuit. We finish this." Across star systems, the Allied forces pressed forward. They chased the scattered Auroch remnants into asteroid belts, gas clouds, deep space pockets where no one had gone before. Slowly, surely, one by one, the Auroch forces were wiped out or captured. On Karzul, Surgeon Park stood at the edge of the broken command pit. The strange black metal walls still smoked from the massive explosion. Her helmet was off now, her face marked with dust and sweat. Around her, Allied forces secured the ruins. Her comm crackled. "Surgeon Park, this is Revenant Command." She tapped her ear. "Go ahead. You're clear for extraction. Good work." Park looked up at the red sky. Dropships were descending through the clouds, their lights bright in the dark air. She allowed herself a small smile. "Copy that. Coming home." Days later, in orbit over Earth, the Allied fleet gathered again. Their ships were scared, burned, and dented. But they stood strong. On every screen, every channel, one message echoed again and again. "The Auroch are broken. The war is over." On the surface, across cities, colonies, and distant outposts, people gathered in streets and domes. Human and alien flags flew side by side. For the first time in years, silence returned to the stars. Not the silence of fear, but of peace. Captain Vargas stood on the bridge of the Revenant, staring at the blue curve of Earth below. Mason stood beside her, hands folded behind his back. "We lost a lot," he said quietly. Vargas nodded. "More than we ever wanted. But we did it." "Yes," she answered simply. "We did." Sarah entered the bridge, her golden eyes steady as always. "My people returned to rebuild our worlds," she said, "but we will keep our alliance strong." "We'll be ready," Vargas promised. Together. Down on the surface, Surgeon Park stood in the middle of a crowd of Marines and Krell warriors. Children ran past them, laughing. Music rose from loudspeakers. Her armor was scratched, her rifle dented. but her eyes were clear and calm. The Krell warrior beside her crossed his arms and looked around at the celebration. "You humans, when you choose war, you fight harder than any species I have seen," he said. Park gave a small, tired grin. "We don't choose war, but when it comes to us, we don't run from it." Above them, in the quiet sky, stars stretched far and wide, and for the first time in a long while, they belonged to everyone again. Months passed after the fall of the Auroch. Across the galaxy, people began to rebuild. Human and alien worlds repaired their cities, cleared battlefields, and buried their dead. The scars of the long war would not heal quickly, but something new was growing in their place. Hope. On the old Auroch homeworld, Karzul, a joint team of human, Krell, and Jilesh engineers worked under the strange red skies. They tore down the black towers and dug deep into the soil to study what had been left behind. No Auroch had been seen since their collapse. The survivors had vanished into deep space, scattered and broken. Sarah stood on a landing platform, watching heavy machines crush the last of the Auroch bunkers into rubble. Beside her, Captain Vargas adjusted her dark jacket, her expression calm. "This planet won't be used for war again," Vargas said. "No," Sarah agreed. "It can become something new." Across nearby worlds, human and alien colonies shared technology, built new trade routes, and trained together. There was no longer talk of returning to old ways or separating again. The war had tied them too closely. On Earth, the Great Allied Council gathered for the first time. Leaders from human colonies, Krell clans, Jilesh councils, and smaller species sat together in one great chamber. Flags and symbols from every world hung from the tall walls. Captain Vargas stood at the center stage. She wore her dark uniform, clean and sharp, but her face showed the lines of long battles. Behind her stood Sarah, Velk, and other commanders from the war. Vargas spoke clearly and simply. No long speeches, no empty promises. "We fought together. We bled together. We don't forget that." She paused, letting her gaze move across every face. "The stars are open again. We can choose what happens next. We can go back to fear, or we can stand together, stronger than before." Slowly, others rose and spoke in turn. Velk rumbled his agreement. Sarah's words flowed calm and sharp. Even Mason, usually quiet behind a console, stood and offered a simple line. "We do not run from the dark anymore." When the meeting ended, the Allied Pact was signed. Not just a truce, but a true alliance. Human and alien worlds tied their futures together by choice. On distant worlds, life slowly returned to normal, but no one forgot what had been lost to win this peace. Sergeant Park, now promoted to lieutenant, walked along the edge of a quiet colony town. Her armor was packed away for the first time in years. Children played on dusty streets. Krell and human traders bartered at a small market nearby. Alien farmers tilled fresh soil next to old ruins. Her Krell friend, the tall warrior, approached her with a small metal flask. "You will not return to Earth?" he asked. She shook her head softly. "No, I think I'll stay out here. Help keep the peace." He gave a slow nod. "Good. There is much to build now." High above, the ISS Revenant floated silently in orbit. Captain Vargas had been offered a return home, a quiet desk job, medals, and rest. But she turned it down. Instead, she kept command of her ship and her crew. The galaxy was vast, and though the war was over, there were always dangers waiting in the dark. Mason stayed by her side on the bridge. New recruits joined the ship, fresh faces eager to serve. Repairs had polished away the battle scars, but the old crew knew what the ship had seen, and what it had survived. One evening, as the stars shimmered in the large viewports, Vargas stood quietly with Sarah. "What happens if something worse comes one day?" Sarah asked. Vargas smiled faintly. "Then we fight again. And we don't fight alone." Far beyond known space, old sensors flickered. Deep in dark sectors where no one traveled, ancient machines stirred. But this time, the galaxy was ready. Across human and alien worlds, soldiers trained together. Fleets patrolled together. Scientists worked together. For the first time in history, they were not scattered peoples standing alone. They were one force, stubborn, bold, and united. And they remembered the simple truth that had changed everything. When others ran from the enemy, the humans, and their allies, chose to fight.